This is Joseph Coretta, and welcome to my storybook. Today, this is the part 7 of this book called Coretta Scott King. Today, I'm going to be reading chapter 9 in this book. Chapter 9 Black Madonna. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s death marked the end of the era in the history of civil rights. Even in those first blank days after her husband's death, Coretta knew that history must not be allowed to die with him. There were countless newspaper stories covering her husband's funeral. Reporters compared Coretta's ceremony with the defining hour in the former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy at President Kennedy's funeral in 1963. Words such as grace, relentless, courage, and strength were frequently. These in reports about Coretta. One reporter, after observing her during the funeral service at Ebenezer Baptist Church, describes Coretta as the Black Baptist Church, described as the Corettas as the Black Madonna, an African American counterpart to Mary, the mother of Jesus, during the crucifixion of her only son. This flood of praise may have come as a surprise to Coretta, who later worked unwittingly of Miss Kennedy's deployment during the president's funeral. Despite her quiet courage, Coretta felt vulnerable even as she consoled her children and attended to Martin's unfinished business affairs. Coretta's relentless faith and the love and concern of friends from near and far were her only echoes. Harry Belafonte probably provided a shoulder for Coretta to lean on. Martin had not been involved in plans for his family's financial security in an event of his death. Coretta knew that her husband was not concerned about wealth or possessions. He gave most of his earnings to the nonviolent movement and reportedly set aside just $5,000 for his family, according to Evening magazine. Belafonte has taken it out at $500,000 insurance policy in Martin's name years before Martin's death. The policy helped to ensure Coretta that her children will be taken care of. During the next few weeks, Coretta kept in close contact with the SCLC. Much of Martin's immediate work he had to be completed. Coretta knew this was not the time to become consumed by grief. She honored as many of her husband's public appearances and speaking engagements as possible. An entire war rally in Central Park was planned for April 27, which happens to be Coretta's birthday, and the Poor People's Campaign cannot be cancelled. She knew she had to attend both events because they were perfect opportunities to continue Martin's plans to promote justice and peace. She sources through Martin's personal papers and find notes for a speech he was prepared for the entire war rally called The Ten Commandments on Vietnam. Coretta relied on Martin's notes to make her presentations. On May 2, 1968, Coretta had to launch the Poor People's Campaign from the balcony of the Lorna Motel in Memphis. Martin's brother stood with her as she invited her procurator to honor her late husband. She knew this was the place where Martin was struck down in the prime of life. But Coretta stood tall. She looked out at the indictments of 1,000 people and spoke easily. I plead eternal loyalty to the work my husband novel began, she said. His legacy will lead us to the point where all God's children have shoes. The crowd followed Coretta as she marched through the streets of Memphis. She walked behind a bull-drawn wagon, reminiscent of the one that had carried Martin to his grave in Atlanta. The marchers led traveling by bus to Mississippi to join others who were bound for the nation's capital. Several weeks later, Coretta walked on and on with ability, now president of the SCLC, during the longest rally of the campaign. The Solidarity Day marched on June 19. 50,000 citizens and rainbow of faces came to show their support on Martin's dream of the integrated scholarship. Coretta wore a black dress, low-heeled black shoes, and sunglasses worn around a little over her heart. She delivered the speech for her husband's last scheduled public appearances on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. The problems of racism, privilege, and war can all be summarized with one word: violence. Coretta declared, Loki, Martin the Third, Dexter, and little Beres watching their mother from the stage platform, surrounded by SCLC members and family. As Coretta spoke her years as a peace activist show, she spoke not only as the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but also as a woman and a mother. Woman, if the soul of this nation is to be saved, I believe that you must become its soul. You must speak out against the evils of our time as you see them. Coretta said she urged women of all races to build a solid block of women's power for peace and equality in the world. Her speech broke new ground. Few women, regardless of race, had even had the opportunity to address the social, political, and economic ills of the nation in front of such a large gathering. Not only was she able to further her late husband's agenda for social change, but she also sent a rally cry women to American women by encouraging them to join the front lines of the nonviolent struggle for human rights. Once again, Coretta's determination impressed reporters. The New York Times called her a woman champion of equality for all races. But winning postal education was Coretta's goal. In July, she had a press conference in Atlanta to announce her plans to build the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. The King Center will be located along 2 blocks on Auburn Avenue and will include the restrictions of her husband's birthplace in addition to his grave village, a library and achievement on his personal wills and military parts and musician and the issue of dedication to nonviolent social change and African American studies. Coretta also told the nation about her fundraising campaign to cover the cost of building the King Center. To collect donations for the project, Coretta vowed to travel throughout the United States and the world, spreading Dr. Martin Luther King's message of love and hope to people everywhere. Coretta also signed a contract with a major New York publisher worth $50,000 according to press reports, to write the story of her life with Martin throughout the struggle for civil rights. She spent the rest of the summer alone in New England writing the book. Later, Coretta filed legal papers to make the King Casino a non-profit corporation and select a board of directors to administrate its affairs. She became the casino's chief executive officer. On January 15, 1969, Coretta celebrated Martin's 40th birthday in a ceremony at Evangel Baptist Church. 2 days later, she formally announced the acceptance of the King Center as a non-profit organization before leaving on a tour of India and India. Coretta visited Rome and met Pope Paul as the Vatican. She also received the Italian government's Universal Love Award, becoming the first non-Italian so honored. In India, Coretta accepted the Nehru Award on behalf of her husband before leaving this place that Martin loved. Coretta gave a series of speeches. In the spring of 1969, Coretta and her sister Edith traveled to London. Coretta became the first woman to give a sermon at St. Paul's Cathedral, the same church Martin had visited in 1964, before accepting the Nobel Peace Prize. She also performed several freedom concerts throughout Britain, Germany, and Holland. Coretta returned home in May. A billionaire invited her to help lead a strike of black hospital workers organized by Local 1199B of the Drug and Hospital Union in Charleston, South Carolina. The majority of the strikers were women who worked as nurses and licensed particular nurses, housekeepers, and laundry workers. Abilene and the local chapter of the SCLC believed Coretta's princess will inspire the picketers. Coretta left Atlanta for Charleston, just as her husband had left for Memphis to help the striking garbage collectors only a year before. When she arrived, Barony and several hundred black strikers were already in prison. Coretta gave a speech before 7,000 Union supporters at the local church. She also led a 2-mile march to Charleston Hospital. National guardsmen were called to keep the protesters in check. But Coretta was not afraid. Coretta later served as an other chairperson of the commentator for the Drug and Hospital Union. She worked with union leaders to make sure the workers' rights were protected. In September, Coretta's first book, My Life with Martin Luther King Jr., was published. Her memoirs could now be shared with millions of readers in America and around the world. But Coretta's unfortunately was not the only liberty high point of her life. The American Liberty Association honored by accepting the Coretta Scott King Award for outstanding black writers and illustrators of children's literature. The award has been given every year since 1969 to writers and artists who wrote experienced fathers, Dr. King's dream of equality, and Coretta's dedication to world peace. Coretta's involvement with the arts had always gone beyond having awards named in her honor. Through her honor, though. In 1971, she followed up her master's degree in music for the New England Conversational with that title. She also continued to travel, delivering speeches, participating in protests, receiving numerous awards and honors, and networking with powerful people. After Martin's death, Coretta was elected to the SCLC's board of directors, but the alliance between King's Window and the male dominant SCLC was not an easy one. According to some reports, most of our male leadership that honored Dr. King was worshiping Dr. King, find it hard to recognize the strength in a woman like Coretta King, says Dorothy Height, president of the National Council of Negro Women. In an interview with the Washington Post 20 years after Martin's death, it is easier for them to think of her as the window of the modern than given leadership in her own right. Coretta had always been outspoken in her own right, but Martin's death had given her an permanent place in the national spotlight. Remembering Ellen Baker's words of vision, she knew it was her responsibility to speak her mind and move forward with her own vision. To that end, Coretta began to work independently with the SCLC. Black members of Congress being lobbying in their colleges to support a federal holiday and honor Martin. Representative John Carlos was one of the first congressmen to introduce such a bill. Just 4 days after Martin's assassination, the idea met with little support. However, Coretta joined a coalition of politicians, civil rights advocates, and peace activities in a national effort to make Martin's birthday a national holiday. In 1971, the Washington Post reported that King supporters led a moved Dawn wagon to Washington, D.C., and drive 3 million protesters supporting the holiday on the steps of the Capitol building. Congress paid little attention to the demonstration, but Coretta continued to travel across the country, calling for a truly American holiday that people of every race could celebrate. Coretta's influence as a civil rights activist grew steadily during the 1970s. Candidates for national law and state office began to seek her endorsement for their campaigns. Governor George McGovern sought her support in his campaign for president as dead black congressional candidate Juan Dellums. President Jimmy Carter, a great admirer and donor of Coretta's appointment, her as a public delight to the United Nations. Coretta led closing countries to support the Humbling Hawkins full employment and Balanced Growth Act, and federal laws stating that every American citizen had the right to a job, to decent pay, and under safe working conditions. Congress led approval of the legislation. The combat section. Coretta went to Congress to lobby for the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment for women. In 1979, Representative John Carlos once again introduced the King Holiday Bill on the floor of Congress, but the measure fell just 5 votes short of passage. This time, Coretta was more determined than ever to get the legislation passed. Several states had already passed their own King holiday bills, but Coretta knew the holiday would have little meaning unless it was observed by the entire nation. President Collin agreed to approve the legislation if it passed his desk before the end of his term. But Coretta and her allies faced certain political opponents, most notable Senators Storm, Storm, Donnerman, and, and Jesse Helms, both of whom questioned whether Martin's achievements meant a national holiday. Coretta went to the nation's capital and had a personal meeting with Representative Jack Kemp uh, to, to persuade him to go to back the King bill. It was a powerful thing to meet Miss Martin Luther King Jr. Kemp told the Washington Post in 1986, "I just felt like it was supporting the King holiday legislation was the right thing to do." After the meeting, Kemp lobbying his colleagues to support the bill. The King Holiday campaign was one of the most popular public endeavors in recent history. In 1980, Grammy Award winning singer and musician Stevie Wonder wrote a song called Happy Birthday that became the anthem for the crusade. In that same year, the U.S. National Park Service declared Dr. King's childhood home and the surrounding neighborhood on Alba Avenue a historic district in order to pursue the rail. In closing, Coretta and the King Center staff started a petition, petition drive to support the King holiday. Coretta was not going to give up. Coretta stood in her husband's place for a very special moment on August 28, 1983, to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the March on Washington. The King Center sponsored a new coalition of consensus to advocate a 12-point plan to the to the promote to promote jobs, peace, and freedom. A proposal for the King holiday was part of the plan. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Coretta and the leaders of others civil rights and peace groups, rather than Martin's call for social justice. This time, 500,000 people publicly showed their support for the national holiday in honor of Dr. King as Martin's birthday anthem filled the air. Coretta clapped and sang along, hoping that President Ronald Reagan and Congress were listening. 3 months later, on November 2nd, Coretta went to the White House to watch President Ronald Reagan sing legislation that establishing the third Monday in January as the official celebration of the birthday of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Senator Helms, however, opposed the King holiday. He alleged that Dr. King had infatuation with the Communist Party USA during the Civil Rights Movement and questioning King's illegal to the U.S. government. To prove his illegations, Helms wanted to examine several FBI files on King, but a judge refused his request. Several weeks before signing the bill, President Reagan, who at first opposed the holiday, commented in a press conference that he did not fault Senator Helms for waiting until the records opened up to investigate Dr. King's illegal infiltrations with the Communist Party. The president's statement caused many black leaders to question his support for civil rights. Later, the president reportedly called Coretta to apologize for his statement at the press conference. As she witnessed the signing, Coretta Scott King smiled with several other black leaders and civil rights congressmen saying, "We shall overcome." She had proven over the years that she had the will, foresight, and know how to keep her husband's legacy alive. That will be the end of the chapter 9 of the part 7 of the My Storybook. Tomorrow will be a final chapter in this book, or chapter 10, called The Dream Continues. Until then, I'm Joseph Crudup. This is my storybook. Feel happy for this, enjoy it all day, and God bless.